Friday. It's the first hour of our Friday program, which means it's time for Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders, the guy I think of as America's senator, although having been a Vermonter for a decade, I know Vermonters think of him as their senator, and rightly so. His website, sanders.senate.gov. You can get his newsletter there, the Bernie Buzz. Also, you can sign his petition to overturn, or his, constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. A lot of great stuff, and it's a great news source. Senator Sanders, you there?
I'm right here, Tom. How are you?
Hey, Bernie, great to have you with us. I understand that you had, first of all, Wisconsin. We haven't talked about that since it happened, and also that you had a meeting with Ben Bernanke.
Well, let's talk about Bernanke first, and then we'll get to Wisconsin. There was a meeting of the Joint Economic Committee. The issues that I raised with him had to do, number one, with conflicts of interest at the Federal Reserve. One of the functions of the Federal Reserve is to regulate Wall Street, and it has always seemed to me a bit absurd that you have the Federal Reserve itself dominated by bankers, especially the regional Feds, including the New York Fed. So you have a guy like Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of the largest financial institution in America, J.P. Chase, sitting on the New York Fed, which is regulating the large financial institutions. Now, that may make sense to some people. It doesn't make sense to me. It is a very clear example of the fox guarding the hen house, and obviously not doing a particularly good job doing that. So that's an issue we talked about. The other issue that I think has got to be addressed is the size of and the financial strength and impact on its economy of 6 financial institutions owning assets equivalent to 2/3 of the GDP of the United States of America. That's $9 trillion. These 6 financial institutions, led by J.P. Morgan Chase, issue 2/3 of the credit cards in the United States and half of the mortgages, and they absorb about 40% of the deposits.
Wow.
So you have a handful of financial institutions with unbelievable economic and political power. These guys spent about $5 billion over a 10-year period in lobbying and campaign contributions in order to deregulate Wall Street, which led us into the recession that we're in right now. And the irony here is that after we bailed them out 4 years ago, 3 out of the 4 are now larger than they were before we bailed them out because of too big to fail. So I happen to believe that we're really not going to make the kind of progress we need in ending the decline of the middle class and turning our economy around until Wall Street, until our financial institutions stop being gambling casinos where they make huge amounts of money for themselves, but rather be an instrument which invests in the productive economy, in small businesses, which are creating goods and services and jobs that the American people believe. So the need, in my view, to break up these huge financial institutions, create a financial system which invests in the real economy, is a huge, huge issue which has got to be addressed. Another issue that we dealt with in the last week is I had a press conference yesterday with Elijah Cummings, a congressman from Maryland, and we introduced the most comprehensive dental legislation ever introduced in the United States. We talk a lot, Tom, about the health care crisis and 50 million people without health insurance and people dying because they don't get to a doctor. We don't talk enough about dental care. You got something like 130 million Americans who don't have any dental insurance. Often that dental insurance, if they do have it, doesn't cover their dental needs. We don't have enough dentists. We have dentists who do not take patients on Medicaid. We do not have enough dentists in rural areas where they're often needed. Medicare does not cover dental care. Medicaid often does not cover dental care depending on the state. So what we have done is put together a comprehensive piece of legislation which makes sure that everybody in this country, the children, the elderly people, 1/4 of people 65 years of age or older in this country have lost all of their teeth. A lot of the kids don't go to the dentist when they should. So this is a pretty sweeping and comprehensive legislation that says we're going to address a very serious crisis in this country. Another meeting that we had just yesterday, I am an independent and I caucus with the Democrats, and at my request, Senator Reid put together a meeting to deal with senior issues, and that we had in there Max Richmond, who is the head of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, one of the largest senior and one of the very good senior citizen organizations in this country, Nancy Altman, who's head of a seniors coalition, which has a whole lot of members, to talk about how we protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and in my view, how we move to a deficit reduction in a way that is fair and not on the backs of the elderly, the sick, the children, and the poor. Because as I said many, many times, Tom, the major issue that we're going to be dealing with in the next 5 months or so is this issue of deficit reduction. Our Republican friends want to decimate Social Security and virtually every other social program of importance to the American middle class. I'm afraid that too many Democrats are moving closer to that point of view. And what we have got to say is, yeah, when you have a deficit caused by 2 wars that Bush started that were unpaid for, tax breaks for billionaires, and the recession caused by Wall Street greed, we're not going to balance the budget on the backs of the most vulnerable people in this country. We are going to ask the wealthy and large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes. We are going to ask the military for cuts, because right now as a nation we spend more on defense than the rest of the world combined. So there is a way to go forward in terms of deficit reduction that's fair. There is a way to go forward that is fundamentally unfair. And that's going to be one of the great struggles we face in the next 5 or 6 months.
And your thoughts on what happened in Wisconsin?
Well, obviously what happened in Wisconsin was very, very disappointing to me, and I think to a whole lot of Americans. I really want to give a real pat on the back and a real sense of gratitude to the thousands and thousands of people in Wisconsin, the trade unionists and others, who did a fantastic job at the grassroots level. At the end of the day, for a variety of reasons, I think mostly having to do with the fact that Walker substantially, I think it was 8-1, outspent Barrett.
And that's just the money we know about. I mean, we may learn a year from now that it was 30-1.
That's right. And I think what we have seen in Wisconsin is the beginning of what Citizens United, or in the case of Wisconsin, a variation of Citizens United, it was a local quirk in their election laws, means. And what we now have as a result nationally of Citizens United is an absurd Supreme Court decision which says that if you're a corporation, for First Amendment rights, you can be treated as if you were a person. And that means that you can spend as much as you want, unlimited, without disclosure, on campaigns from the White House to the Senate to the House and way on down. And I think this is an incredibly destructive Supreme Court decision which must be overturned, which is why we've got a constitutional amendment to do just that.
And you can get to that at sanders.senate.gov. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls next in our National Town Hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And be sure to check out Bernie's website. You can sign on to that constitutional amendment over at sanders.senate.gov, G-O-V. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and it's and Senator Sanders and Tont. Do I have it? Is that your name in Las Vegas?
Tony.
Tont. Okay, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Tom, it's an honor to talk to both of you guys. I hold you guys in the highest regard. You guys just talked about the Wisconsin thing, and that really scares me. And I just wanted to know, with all the signatures and all of that stuff signed, how did he win this thing? I mean, it's amazing to me, and it's scary.
Well, I think, Tony,
that's really my question.
Nobody knows. No one will ever know the definitive answer to your question. I think here are the couple of the answers. Number one, we start off with the premise that he won the last election. So this guy has already won an election in a vote that was pretty close to what we saw at the recall. Number two, as Tom and I just discussed, when you have huge amounts of money coming into a state for television ads and radio ads and to develop a grassroots infrastructure, that is of enormous help. Third area, I think, is that you probably had a number of people, although nobody can tell you exactly how many, but what some of the exit polling suggested, you had some people there who said, I don't like Walker, but you know what? I do not like the concept of a recall. It's going to cost taxpayers money, and I really don't like that. So maybe we'll vote him out next time in a regular election, but not in a recall. But at the end of the day, I think the most significant factor is the money element, and we should all be very scared that in our great American democracy, which people fought and died to preserve, in which we have just an extraordinary history, in which we have tried to make it more and more inclusive, that we now have a Supreme Court decision which says that billionaires, and you have a situation now where the Koch brothers have indicated they're prepared to spend some $400 million in campaigns around the country. So we've got to fight very, very hard to overturn that decision. We've got to develop kinds of strong grassroots movements, not be discouraged, and keep fighting back.
Yeah, okay. Al in Buffalo, we have just 1 minute till the break. You got a quick question for Bernie?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'd like to ask the senator, how about we make this infrastructure bill like a campaign issue and call it the National Emergency Infrastructure Bill? Senator Ray LaHood, could he hold a press conference explaining to the American people how bad our roads and our bridges are?
Let's get to Bernie on this because we only have a half a minute.
Ray LaHood, if people don't know, is the Secretary of Transportation. He's doing a really good job. What Al is saying is that we have an infrastructure in America, roads, bridges, public transportation, rail, water systems, wastewater plants, that are in terrible shape. And we need to be making major investments in our infrastructure. And when you do that, you can create millions of good-paying jobs. When you put $1 billion into the infrastructure, I think you create something like 28 or 30,000 jobs, desperately needed jobs in the construction industry. So Al is right. This should be a major campaign issue that we have our Republican friends refusing to create the jobs that we desperately need, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. It is and should be a major campaign issue.
19 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back with more. Senator Bernie Sanders answering your questions in our National Town Hall meeting. Brunch with Bernie. The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Solar World. SolarWorld.com for information on solar electricity. No, it doesn't come easy. You got to work at it. It's called democracy. Welcome back. It's Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us from his offices in Burlington, Vermont tonight. Andrew in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, Tom and Bernie. My question is with the Greece meltdown. Now, do you think that the Greece citizens knew what was coming as it was coming up, or was it a two-part question here? Do you think they knew it was coming, or was it kind of like they were just in water that was being brought to a boil, or do you think that they kind of had a kind of an ability to see what was coming, and do you think that we're currently in the same situation?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a complicated question. I don't know that we have the time to go into it in great length. But this is what I would say. What the recent elections in Greece were about were people saying very loudly and clearly, and by the way, we had similar elections in France, we had similar elections, statewide elections in Germany, where people are saying we are moving in Greece. Obviously, the economic situation is awful. And in France and Germany, not so bad, but not great. And people are saying, yeah, we may need some austerity. We may need to cut back. But you cannot just simply cut back on a middle class and working class that has already been decimated, especially in the case of Greece, where you've seen pension cuts and health care cuts and job cuts and massive unemployment. And people were saying that pain has got to be spread around to other people, including the upper income people and the banks. And I think, Andrew, the fight that we are seeing in Europe is exactly the same fight that we are going to see in the United States. And that is especially in our country, where we have a grotesquely unequal distribution of wealth and income, where in the last number of years, the wealthiest people in this country have done phenomenally well. So that in 2010, for example, the last year we have statistics on this, 93%, I want you to think about this, 93% of all new income created between 2009 and 2010 went to the top 1%. You have the top 1% owning 40% of the wealth in America. Now, who do you think should be asked to bear the burden of austerity? Do you think it should be elderly people on $15,000 a year who should see cuts in Social Security? Or senior citizens should see cuts in their Medicare? Or kids who don't get enough nutrition now see cuts in nutrition programs? Or do we ask the wealthy and large corporations to start contributing to deficit reduction? You're seeing that fight in Europe. You're seeing it in the United States. And that is going to be the issue I think the whole world is going to be focusing on in the coming months.
Rob in Minnesota, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you for this time, Tom. Senator Sanders, I got the greatest respect for both of you. The one question I've got is this mantra as far as the Republicans in the last 48 hours. Again, they came out with this job creators situation. We've got to be able to extend these things. After 11 years of tax cuts to the job creators, we have the worst economy that we've had since I've been alive. I'm 58 years old. Now, the whole thing is why doesn't somebody just come out and tell those people it's not working? Let's go on. I'm willing to pay more taxes.
You're talking about the Bush tax cuts.
I'm in the peasant class.
Rob, it's not a question. We tell them that every day. This is not an intellectual debate. This is, Rob, I'm glad you asked that question, because I think a lot of people are under the impression, are these people stupid? Don't they understand? We had this Romney-Bush economic philosophy of giving tax breaks to the rich and large corporations, what's called trickle-down economics. It didn't work. It was terrible under Bush. We lost 500,000 private sector jobs after 8 years of that philosophy. It simply makes the rich richer and is destructive to the middle class and working families. This isn't an intellectual debate. What this is a debate about, Rob, is that these wealthiest people, the very wealthiest people with incredible money, with incredible power, they don't give a damn. They're not staying up nights. They don't have any concern about worrying about the children of this country, about the elderly people, about the middle class of this country. What their track record has been, these so-called job creators at the heads of large corporations, they have created jobs in the last 10 years. In China, in Vietnam, and in other low-wage countries around America. But in this country, they have downsized considerably. That's been their effort. And in terms of taxes, what they are saying, I don't care if kids go hungry. I don't care if the elderly people can't afford health care. What's only important to me is that I'm worth $100 million. I want to be worth $150 million. I got $5 billion. I want $10 billion. So what you're looking at now is unparalleled greed in this country. It's not an intellectual debate. They got it, they want it, and they want even more, and they're willing to stop at nothing to get even more. That is the sad story. And I know that some people say, gee, it's not really right. Maybe they just don't know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And what they are doing is working for them. Just mentioned a moment ago, last year we have records. 93% of all new income went to the top 1%. That is fantastic. That is great. That is a success story. if you are in the top 1%. But if you're at the bottom 60%, bottom 40%, the likelihood is you're working longer hours for low wages. Not so good for you. But they got the wealth, they got the power, and they are using that.
Yeah. And they're using it to get their buddies elected now. And
that's the other manifestation of that through Citizens United. It's not just brute economic force. It's not just breaking unions. It is now political power because they can contribute as much as they want to right-wing candidates.
Yeah. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour, National Town Hall meeting. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. Be sure to check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. You can sign up for the Bernie Buzz there, his newsletter. You can great news source, plus you can sign his constitutional amendment.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And you can drop by thomhartmann.com, drop into our free live chat room, hang out with the finest minds on earth, read our message boards, participate, create your own blogs, all kinds of cool stuff. Your calls in our National Town Hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie. And Bernie, you're still here with us, right?
I'm right here.
Okay. Peter in New York, New York. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom. Senator Sanders, thank you for taking my call.
Okay.
We hear you fine, Peter. It sounds like you're driving.
Yes, I am. I've been hearing a lot of the quote-unquote, the rich need to pay their fair share. And obviously with the budget deficit that we have today of over $1 trillion, I think I've seen in many places that if we let the Bush tax cuts expire for the rich, that won't come anywhere close to closing the budget deficit that we have. So I'm wondering, is there a number that actually equates to fair share, or is that basically whatever tax rate it takes to balance the budget? I mean, is there how much spending reduction do we need versus the tax increases? But really, more importantly, back to my original question is, what is fair share? Is it 50%?
Okay. Well, that's a fair, Peter, that's a fair question, and it's, first of all, it is not, in my view, necessary to move to complete deficit reduction tomorrow. In other words, we have, I think, a $1.2 trillion deficit this year. We have a $15.6 trillion national debt, and we can have a debate as to how long it should take us to move toward a balanced budget. But I don't think anyone thinks you have to do it overnight. What we do want to do is be moving in the right direction. We want the deficit to go down and not up. Second of all, let us remember and never forget, and it's very easy to forget, that when Clinton left office in 2000, we were running a very significant surplus. And in fact, over a period of years, we would have balanced the budget. Thirdly, let us also not forget that the reason we're in deficit reduction today is 2 wars that Bush waged, forgetting to pay for them, and tax breaks for the rich and the recession that we're in right now. Fourthly, then, the question is, where do we go from here? When you have an effective tax rate, and this is, Peter, what Warren Buffett often talks about. Warren Buffett's the second richest guy in this country, and he points out that his effective tax rate is lower than his secretary's. And in fact, for the wealthiest people in this country, their real tax rates are lower than they have been in decades. Corporations are today contributing significantly less in corporate taxes to the federal coffers than they used to do. There are also major corporations in this country who don't pay a nickel in taxes. So I can't give you an exact answer about where we should be tomorrow, but this is what I do believe. Yes, the wealthiest people in this country have got to pay more in taxes than they're paying today. Of course, that means doing away with the Bush tax breaks for the wealthy, but in fact, you've got to go further than that, in my view. Second of all, you need to do away with the absurdity that we are losing as a nation $100 billion a year because corporations and wealthy people are stashing their money in the Cayman Island and in other tax havens. Thirdly, the idea that companies like ExxonMobil and other oil companies that make huge amounts of money continue to get huge tax breaks is totally insane to my view. So I think when you look at individual taxes, asking the wealthy to pay their fair share, doing away with loopholes in corporate tax law, taking a hard look at military spending, I do believe that you can move toward a balanced budget in a reasonable period of time without balancing that budget on the backs of the most vulnerable, and also including in that budget significant investments in infrastructure and transforming our energy system, in education. So that's kind of a long answer to a short question, other than to say that I don't think there's any magic formula that anybody has.
But we have done it before.
Yes.
We have done it before. Corky, in Rochester, New York. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. You got to get up there and get on the floor and tell all those guys, okay, you win. We, the American middle class, will work for what we worked for in the 1980s, and you guys pay in taxes what you paid in the 1980s. Is that a fair deal?
That's a fair deal. I don't think they'll go for it. They'll go for the first half of that, Corky, not the second half. What they will go for, and by the way, let me, I think, Tom, in a future program, I think what we should do, what I'll do, is just present to our listeners some of the pieces of legislation that our right-wing Republican friends are bringing forth, and I think people will really be shocked. In other words, Corky says people will work for what they worked for in the 1980s. In some cases, that's already taking place. You have young workers today who are making substantially less doing the same work that older workers are doing today. You have people working far longer hours than they used to in order to bring home the same paycheck. But our right-wing friends really want to go further. They got some of them, and I've heard this, who believe that the concept of a minimum wage. Some of us want to raise the minimum wage. These guys don't even not want to raise the minimum wage. They want to do away with the concept of the minimum wage, because to them what freedom is about is if you're in a terrible recession and people are desperate and they're prepared to work for $3 or $4 an hour, what's the problem? Pay people $3 or $4 an hour. Why do you need a minimum wage to at least have a certain standard that workers have to receive? So, Corky, these guys want to pay less, but I don't believe they want to go back to the old tax structure where they were asked to pay their fair share.
Rebecca in Chicago, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Nice to talk with you. I really enjoy speaking with you. One of the previous callers asked about how why don't we let the people in charge know that these trickle-down economics aren't working, that the tax cuts that we've been giving are not creating jobs. Well, I think that that many of us are informed that these tax cuts are not creating jobs by these so-called job creators. We know that. But on the other side, I think the Republicans also know that. How do we get to that middle ground group of people that may not be aware of that? How do we appeal to those independent voters, those independents that aren't listening to Bernie Sanders on one side and Rush Limbaugh on the other side?
Good question, Rebecca. And I don't think any easy answer. This is what I do think. And Tom and I actually had this experience on this show, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. A very nice woman called up, sounds very nice, working in the postal system, an area that we have paid a lot of attention to, trying to save the postal system. And she called up from Texas, and she said something to the effect, why is the government getting involved in the postal service like they are doing in Medicare? Remember that question, Tom?
Yeah.
And she did not know that Medicare, in fact, was a government program, and that the Postal Service, while now getting its revenue independently, is certainly still under the aegis of the United States Congress and the President. She didn't know that. There are millions of people who do not know that. They live in areas of the country where the only thing they hear is right-wing radio. The only politicians they hear from are right-wing politicians who say over and over again that tax breaks for the rich is the only way we can go. Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid terrible government programs. The only way we can move toward a deficit reduction is by making terrible, terrible cuts to these useless and wasteful government programs. That's the mantra. That's the rhetoric they hear every single day. And Rebecca says, well, what's the antidote to that? And I'll tell you what the antidote is. The antidote is a strong grassroots movement in which our people are busy knocking on doors, especially to working class people, to lower income people, educating them about what's going on in our country, the growing gap between the rich and the poor, talking a little bit about what other countries have achieved in terms of national health care for all, or free college education for young people. Educate people about where we are right now and where we can be as a nation. And we need a massive grassroots movement to do just that, to counteract the fact that talk radio dominates, 95% of the airwaves, Tom?
Yeah, at least.
All right, that they got all these right-wing think tanks, that all the big money interests are electing the right-wing politicians. So, Rebecca, that is not a complicated answer to your question. It's a simple answer, but I think ultimately it is door-to-door. It's talking to our neighbors. It's getting good information out and doing the best that we can to make sure that working families all over this country do not vote against their own interests, do not support candidates who are working day and night against their future.
What do you think of Thomas Frank's theory that the main thing that swings them is social issues? They forget the economy.
I don't believe that. My own experience in the state of Vermont is, look, we all have differences of opinion, all right? I am pro-choice. I have friends who are not pro-choice. I believe in gay marriage. People disagree with me. But I think you can bring people together around saying, should we have a strong middle class in America?
Yep.
And should we have health care to all people? So I think the people can disagree, but I think the economic issues can be a real unifier.
I think you're absolutely right. Senator Bernie Sanders with us, taking your calls here on Brunch with Bernie. Right after
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov, for all kinds of great stuff, including the Bernie Buzz. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Senator Bernie Sanders. Johnny in California watching us on Dish Network, Dish Satellite TV on Free Speech TV Network. You are on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, Senator Sanders. It's a delight to talk to you.
My pleasure.
I wanted to bring up the war on women. And I don't like the term war on women. It's like the war on terrorism, war on drugs, which is the war on some drugs. But it's really an attack on women's rights, on the equal rights of women in this country. And if you look nationwide, Republicans across the country, in state after state, have passed laws that lower the availability of abortion to women who need them, who want them, who choose them. And recently, the Senate had problems with passing an Equal Pay Act, which we did way back in 1967. So I'm calling to talk to you about all that, ask you about the attack on women's rights.
Well, I think, Johnny, you are exactly right. Just this past week, Republicans successfully filibustered a paycheck fairness piece of legislation that would have given more strength to the effort to provide equal pay for equal work for all Americans. Right now, women get 77 cents for a dollar's work that a man gets. Minority women get even less than that. The idea that people would vote against Americans getting equal pay for equal work, regardless of their gender, is hard for me to imagine, but that is exactly what happened. The idea of trying to deny, I always find it strange to understand how people who tell us they want to get the government off the backs of the American people, get government out of my life, are busy telling every woman in America what she can do in terms of abortion, in terms of the most personal and difficult decisions that she has to make. They think the government knows better than that woman. That doesn't make sense to me. But recently, we have seen efforts that go even further than that in terms of trying to make it more difficult, and this is just incomprehensible to me, for women to get birth control from their insurance companies. And we had an amendment that came up on the floor, the Blunt Amendment. Senator Blunt is from Missouri, which basically said that if an employer had, quote-unquote, moral concerns, ethical concerns about an insurance provider that he was paying for, providing contraception or birth control to a woman, that he could take that out of the health care being provided. And that, to me, is just, again, unbelievable. So I think what we're seeing at all levels on economic issues, on social issues, is in fact a significant attack on women. And what makes that so sad is that women have fought for so long in order to gain their place in American society, to gain the access to any job that they want to perform, to get equal pay, to be able to control their own bodies. And all of those efforts are being under attack right now, and that we've just got to stand up and fight back on that.
Maybe one of these days all the women in Congress will get together and pass an amendment that says that female employers who don't want to pay for Viagra as part of their health plans can do so. A bad joke. I'm sorry, Bernie. We will be right back with more Senator Sanders. Stick around. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie.
Hello, this is Mike.
Hey, Mike, you're on the air.
Pleased to meet you, Bernie. Tom, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if it isn't time just to call a general strike.
Well, Mike, that would be a good idea if it were feasible, but I don't think we have the organizational capability of doing that. But I do think that what we need to do right now is to work as hard as we can to defeat Mr. Romney's efforts to become president. We need a strong grassroots movement to do that. And we need to develop a progressive agenda, Mike, that the average American says, yeah, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. So what does that mean? It means that we're not going to balance the budget on the backs of working families. It means that we're going to move forward toward a national health care program guaranteeing health care to all people. It means that we are going to address this awful, awful problem of massive income and wealth inequality in America today, where the top 1% earn more income than the bottom 50%, and the gap between the rich and everybody else is growing much, much wider. We have to address that issue, because that is not only a fairness issue, it's an economic issue. If working families don't have the money in their hands, they can't go out and buy the products they need and create the jobs that result from that. So you got to deal with that. We've got to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We need to make sure that college education is affordable to our kids. So what we have got to do, in my view, Mike, is develop these types of strong grassroots organizations around a progressive agenda in which the vast majority of the American people say, I agree with that. And we can disagree on abortion. You can disagree on gay rights. You can disagree on anything you want. But at least on economic issues, let's come together and say that we need a government that is working for all of us and not just the 1%. And that is exactly what's happening right now in Washington. You have especially in the Republican House of Representatives, these guys are doing the bidding of the big money interest, and we've got to say enough is enough, and we've got to make the Democrats stand stronger in representing working families as well.
EJ in Oregon, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders, and thank you, Tom, for being level-headed in the sea of lunacy But anyways, I wanted to talk about the austerity too. It's like watching Fox News the other night. They twisted the recall on Walker, and they basically turned it in as austerity, full steam ahead. And then at my level, being a working class, how do we indoctrinate, just like you were saying, Mr. Sanders, with the grassroots, how do we indoctrinate the people and say it's just not working? The austerity, even the statistics are there. They've been there for 30 years.
Well, that's a great question, EJ. And we need folks, we need folks all over the country to be spreading the word that right now, even before federal action, before the Republicans do what they want to do, we are seeing austerity. If you stop and you think and you look at the broad picture, productivity has significantly increased on the part of American workers. We have technology out there which enables our people to be much more productive than they have ever been before. You would think that the result of that improved technology and increased productivity would be, hey, good news, you're making more money and you're working fewer hours. Congratulations. Instead of working 40 hours a week, you're working 30 hours a week. Or congratulations, you've seen a 25% increase in your income because of increased productivity. But we all know that for a wide variety of reasons, including disastrous trade agreements, anti-union activity, etc., the average American worker today is working longer hours for lower wages than used to be the case. So you already have austerity. You have senior citizens who are living in many cases in terrible poverty. I did a hearing on this issue. Elderly people who just don't have the money to even buy the food that they need to stay healthy. You have 22% of our children living in poverty. You have kids graduating college deeply in debt. That's before the Republican plan to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and education, which would make it much worse. So I would say to you, EJ, yeah, I believe in austerity, but maybe it's time for austerity for the wealthiest people in this country and for the largest corporations who are doing phenomenally well. Let them bear a little bit of pain right now rather than some elderly person or some sick child. So we need austerity for the people who have the money and the wealth rather than just for the middle class.
Bernie, we have just a little over a minute left, really not enough time to bring in another caller. Your thoughts on the week and where we need to be going forward from here?
Where we need to be going forward is the following. I am more than aware, and I share these sentiments, that not everybody is enthusiastic about Barack Obama. That in my view, and I think in many listeners' views, there's a lot more that he could have done. But having said that, let us be very, very clear about the alternatives. If Mitt Romney is elected president of the United States, and if the Republicans continue to hold on to the House and even capture the Senate, what the American people will be looking at is something they cannot even begin to imagine. Things that they have taken for granted will be taken away from them. There will be a level of attacks waged against working families that we have never seen in our lifetime. So I think the immediate task right now is to make sure that Obama gets reelected, to make sure that we elect as progressive a people as we can to the House and to the Senate, and to fight for a progressive agenda to demand that Congress start worrying about ordinary people in this country, our kids and the elderly, and not just the top 1%.
Thank you, Bernie. Thanks so much for being with us today and every week. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Senator Bernie Sanders, check out his website at sanders.senate.gov.